All right, without further ado, I am so excited for this morning because this is Mental Health Awareness Month. And who better to close out this month? How many of you have learned, especially in the last couple of decades or so, how important our mental health is? Come on. How many of you have perfect mental health? One in the back. All right. I know you. You don't. All right, Mark? Yeah. That's actually the problem. All right? I'm just kidding. His wife is shaking her head. All right. So we all could learn some stuff, and what they're bringing this morning is going to challenge you in a great way to understand a concept that we hear about that we don't often see personified. We don't often see it demonstrated well. And they're going to be doing that today. They're trying to figure out what I'm talking about, but you know. And so will you please welcome our resident doctors, Doctors Emily and Essence Deming-Rivers, as they come. Which one wants the new one? That's the new one. This is the new one.
Wow. Hi, guys.
Hi.
It's crazy. We keep getting the mic. We're like, okay, Dan, if you ever want us to say anything, like we will. He's like, okay, go ahead. It's fine. So we're so happy to be back with you guys. If we haven't got a chance to meet you, my name's Essence. And,
I'm Emily.
We are both psychologists, and we are really passionate about just making the world a little easier for people that are different, but we work with a lot of like marginalized and intersectionally marginalized people, and if you don't know what that means, you will by the end of today. And we see that the church is such a common thread in a lot of people's stories of hurt. And so when we were thinking about Mental Health Awareness Month, it was like a no-brainer what we wanted to talk about. Anything to add, wife?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is we recognize the impact that we can have in one-to-one therapy, but that's only the people who can come see us during a work week. And so we're so thankful for the opportunity to be able to come out and touch everybody here, and hopefully you guys will learn something. Our goal is not to make sure that we're the only people with the knowledge. We want to make sure that everyone gets the knowledge so you can go out and you can go touch your communities, and we create a really good ripple effect.
So yay. We don't have a slide thingy, so you can go to the next one. Okay, so to get us started, we just wanted to talk about what Christianity and what the Bible was actually, intended to be when it first started out.
So originally, the Bible was meant to be a message to us. It wasn't a strict rule book of these are the things we're supposed to do, this is right, this is wrong. It was a message to help us understand how to build community, how to find hope, and how to find a life that matches our value system.
Thanks, Queen. Yeah, I think like Dan talks about a lot, it was supposed to be a mirror where there's these stories of people that have been through stuff and made a lot of mistakes, but the reason that was included was so that we could all see ourselves in the story. And somewhere along the way, I don't really know what happened, but things just started to change.
All of a sudden, terms and conditions were added.
And so we told people, we said, Anna, come forward. You have equal access to God. Jules, come forward. You totally can be here. Dan, Steve, Merle,
come forward.
Come forward. Was that all of the people that we warned?
You
guys can stay down there, though.
You're good.
This is actually the message. Like, literally, this is what we said as a church. Like, you guys can be here, but you have to go down there. We'll tell you what to do.
Everybody come forward. Yeah. You're all supposed to have equal access.
Right? We all have equal access to God.
But if you're a woman, your wisdom is valuable, but your primary calling is to support, not lead from the front. Your voice is important, but this isn't your place. So take a step back. So step towards the back. Yeah, let's go back there.
You got to take a little. You guys can face us. We clearly didn't practice.
You guys can face us.
Yeah. So if you're a woman, you're welcome here, but you got to take a step back. In that
direction.
way,
whatever direction you want.
Isn't that crazy? We said, you got to go over there. We didn't tell you what to do or how to stay here, but you do have to go. If who or how you love doesn't fit the traditional mold, it doesn't look the way that we are told it's supposed to look, we love you, and we're so happy that you're here. But if you want to really be serious about your relationship with God, then you need some time to just think about that and maybe get your head together.
So take a step back. Yeah, they can all go in different directions. Yeah. If you're born into a different faith or deconstructing, if your questions are too big or too challenging, your journey is leading you astray. You're backsliding, and you're a bad influence on everybody else here.
Yeah, so if you've ever questioned your relationship with God, or if this is where you want to be, you need to take a step back. If you're a person of color and you love God, you're so happy to be in church. But you want to talk about like present or past racial stuff. You want to bring up historical inequality. You want to talk about things that make other people feel uncomfortable because they don't want that to be their legacy. Your perspective needs to be refined a little bit. Maybe even quieted so you can actually really get it and belong here. So if you've ever wanted to acknowledge the role of systemic inequality in church, you need to take a step back.
If your body or your brain works differently than what we've decided is the norm, if you need accommodations we haven't thought of, if your presence reminds us of vulnerability we'd rather just ignore and pretend isn't there, we value, but perhaps this space isn't fully equipped for all of you. So take a step back.
Yeah, if your brain works differently, go ahead and take a step back. Yeah, if you've ever struggled financially, you can't give your money to the church. You don't come to church on Sundays because you have to work. If you need to borrow money sometimes, or you can't donate to our newest fundraiser, or if your financial barriers are highlighting things that we don't understand or we're not willing to fix, we care about you and you're worthy, but your full participation here kind of feels a little complicated. So take a step back.
If your emotional or mental struggles make us feel uncomfortable, if your pain can't be prayed away, if we can't fit it into a 15-minute testimony, then we want you to be whole, but you being broken is a bit too much for us right now. So while you go figure it out, take a step back.
Do you guys see what's happening? Before we knew it, when we started, we all were right here. We all had equal access to God. But then we added all these barriers and we pushed people away for things that the Bible literally never said. It was never part of the plan. This isn't God's design.
Did you win? The Privilege Olympics for sure. You guys can sit down, thank you. But these men, yes.
Yeah.
Thank you guys for being vulnerable. We appreciate that. But these man-made barriers kept us from the place that was supposed to heal us, that was supposed to help us find community. We created all these barriers to isolate people.
So, if you've ever felt, this is a personal reflection, but if you have ever felt that subtle or sometimes not so subtle shift yourself or change yourself, shrink yourself, be something other than yourself in order to belong, think about those moments in your life.
So with all these conditions, we started to think about when you watched everyone take a step back, they weren't taking one step back and then the rest didn't apply to them. We're seeing that all of these things interconnect. We're not just one category, we're not just one thing, we're not just one value or one identity. We're a lot more than that.
And so often, It's both and. It's my sexuality and my questions. It's my background and how I love. It's the way that my brain works and the way that I want to be here, but I'm struggling financially. This term of how we have these overlapping aspects of our identity and our characteristics, and they impact the way that we experience the world, the way that the world treats us, the opportunities we have access to. That is defined as intersectionality. And it's really important as, as a church and as people that prioritize justice that we get this. That like, when you walk into a place, you are never just one thing. And that's part of the design of our Creator. Like, He made us unique for a reason. But because we're different, that means that we also experience the world differently.
And when we're dismissed, when we're othered, when we're called out on our identity, and we're kept from spaces where love and healing and community are found, that's when we start to experience what we call religious trauma. And we start to be excluded from the places we're taught to seek help from. We're excluded from the people that might feel like us or look like us, and we're left to deal with our stuff in isolation because we've been taught that we're too much to handle.
And it's not about being too sensitive. It's about real harm, real wounds that impact our ability to trust one another, to connect with each other, and to feel whole and worthy of being here on earth and making a difference.
And while you're being isolated, you're not realizing that other people in the group that are being isolated too. We watched our volunteers stand up here, and they were able to watch each other take a step back. But that rarely often happens, where we're watching other people be told to back away from those communities.
It'd be easier if it was that clear.
Mm-hmm. And then we wind up with the people watching it happen. Now, we had a whole room of people watching us tell our volunteers to take a step back, and nobody said anything. Nobody questioned it. Nobody said, well, why are you making them take a step back? Why is that a disqualifier from accessing religion or God? And that falls into what we call the bystander effect. And the bystander effect is the belief that somebody else will do it. That if we're watching harm being done, if we're watching someone being isolated or traumatized, somebody else has got it. Somebody else will make sure that doesn't happen. And in organized religious institutions, we often see that it's the belief that leadership will do something, that they'll step in. But what we miss is sometimes leadership is the one isolating our people and putting people back and telling them to take the steps back. So we're expecting the people who are actively harming to also be the ones to stop it.
And what happens when they don't? When you have that like pit in your stomach and you're in a room and you're like, this doesn't feel right. Like, should I say something? Should I not? And we kind of go back and forth with ourselves. And oftentimes, unfortunately, the most human response is we don't say anything. We sit there like we all did. Mm-hmm. We had a conversation and we were like, what if somebody says something? Like, are we prepared to respond to that before we get to this slide? Mm-hmm. And we were like, but they probably won't. And we love you guys. Like this is like our people. Mm-hmm. But what we know is that it's so human, no matter what type of person you are or how you care about people, to not say anything and to go with what everybody else is doing.
And we don't hold authority over you guys. The only authority that we have is we're up here with a microphone in our hand. But in reality, we all have the same access. We all have something to say. We all have the same ability to impact people. But it's the assumed power of just being up here and having the space to talk.
And if you were to say something, you might feel embarrassed. You might feel like, I don't know, nobody else is saying things, there's other people. And what if people think I'm weird? What if people think that I'm like annoying or I'm causing a scene or I'm disrupting the service? I don't want to do that. And so sometimes we choose the comfort of the illusion of belonging and community and being here rather than doing the hard thing, because that means that we're going to be alone.
And it doesn't make you a bad person. Being afraid to speak up does not make you a bad person, but it does make you complicit in a harmful system. And to be able to do something about it, you have to be willing to take the risk. And that's where safety and community come in, is that you have to be willing to be the person who speaks up.
And the Bible is actually full of examples of this too. It's full of examples of injustices that were there in order for us to learn from. And so we're going to talk a little bit about Isaiah. Not yet. No. Now, if you grew up in church, you know that Isaiah was a prophet. He was deeply rooted in his faith. He wasn't afraid to challenge the status quo. And throughout the book of Isaiah, he calls out injustice. You leave it. Warns of consequences that will happen if injustices go unchecked. And then also spent time giving people hope. At the time that Isaiah 53 was written, Israel was in crisis. Everything was in shambles. They had been attacked by enemy nations. Their leaders were a hot mess, and many people felt scared, ashamed, and abandoned by God. So I know we wouldn't know anything about what that feels like, but just picture it for them.
See if you can get there.
They felt abandoned by God. And Isaiah's role in writing this was trying to help people understand what was happening and point out that God was still present, even in all the chaos that they were feeling.
Do you want? Yeah. Okay. So the scripture that we pulled for this is, "But he was wounded for our transgressions. He was crushed for our wickedness, our sin, our injustice, our wrongdoing. The punishment required for our well-being fell on him, and by his wounds we are healed."
Now raise your hand if you've ever heard that scripture. Okay, so a pretty common one. And this is one that a lot of times is like, Jesus had to die because you're so bad. Like, it's that serious. And like, you're okay now, but it was really bad. That this was the only thing that could fix you. But that's like so out of context, guys. Like, if you read it, you'll see it. But if you haven't, we're explaining that what Isaiah was trying to communicate with this like word was a metaphor. It was a story. It was an illustration about even though and even when everything feels broken, God has a plan. And in this situation and in a lot of our lives, the plan is not that this love and redemption are going to come through power. Sometimes they're going to come through our suffering. And it's going to come through love.
Mm-hmm. And recognizing that like pain, suffering is not a sign that we've been abandoned, but is often a sign that like God is with us in those moments to be able to walk us through the hurt instead of helping us avoid hurt in general.
And so if you've ever been hurt, you've felt unseen, you felt unwanted or unloved, the passage is telling us that you're not alone and your suffering is not meaningless. All of these steps back and all the work you've been doing to try and get back up here, back with your access to God, feeling like you're being cast away even when you're not, there's a point to all that. And even if there wasn't, like, God wasn't orchestrating those things on your behalf, it doesn't mean that, like, you're just doomed and done for because you messed up.
And it's recognizing that healing is a process. You don't just, like, become harmed and then become healed. It's just as much about sitting through the journey of healing and recognizing that we don't heal alone and that it takes time and that sometimes it looks like we're not walking towards the healed version of us, but being okay being healing instead of healed is just as important.
Yeah, and it's not just about healing in general, but also how healing happens. Like, there's a big point that a lot of times we miss when we're like dealing and like looking through the lens of shame, is that like literally in the moments that we were so lost, we were feeling disqualified, we were feeling low, that's where Jesus showed up. And he was like, all right, this is where I need to be because this is where my people are. And he loved in a way that was so strong that it threw off the status quo. We were like, wait a second, we're used to telling people that they're supposed to be over there, and now you're telling everybody to just come here? Like, no, that's not how we do things here. But if that's the way that God worked, right? Like in this story throughout the Bible, that the whole plan was, we're gonna send somebody in the worst days of people's lives when they feel so hopeless, and that's where healing and redemption are going to happen, then why would you think that couldn't happen with you too? And
we recognize that, like, while we don't always have a choice, Jesus did. he walked into this knowing what was going to happen. He walked in knowing that there was going to be suffering. And he chose to do that to show us that, like, that is something that God is able to sit with us in, and is something that God is able to walk through with us, instead of being like, you'll figure it out, like, it's a part of the human existence. He showed us that in that moment, we've entered into that space of suffering and brokenness so that we can come to the other side.
And there's a process that occurs, and at every stage of the process, there's not like a destination that you need to get to be like, okay, now I have been in the tomb for 3 days, and now I rose from the dead, and now I'm ready to help everybody with their stuff. Like, he picked everyone that was just like on the street. I mean, if you look at the lives of the disciples, and we're like, yeah, you're good enough. They had no orientation. There was no like manual handbook, like, okay, this is how you be. It was just like, okay, yeah, like you have something to offer. Come with me. But we're not seeing that same pattern continue. Like, what is that? Like, why is it that we're not looking at each person and being like, wow, Chris, like, you have something to offer the world, and we want you to come and, like, show everybody what that is? Like, what's happening in the churches, in our churches and in our communities, where we're not seeing that happen?
Yeah. We've cut out the process and expect people to be ready with no steps, no guidance, nobody to walk with them. We're like, you just show up. You show up when it's polished and perfect, but, like, you'll figure out the process.
Our tables are shrinking. Instead of love, compassion, and freedom, we are there to meet people with the opposite. We are allowing the buts to overshadow the invitation. We are telling people to take steps back, and as a result, we're shrinking who's allowed to be here and show up and play their part.
And we create a culture of distrust that, like, if I come to you with the mess, that's not going to be safe. That I'm going to walk up to a place and you're just going to turn me away. And it creates a space where, like, everyone has to heal without community. And we just know that that is not the most helpful thing that can be done. But we teach people that inherently they are broken. But we don't give them a path forward. We don't give them steps. We say that you as a person need to figure it out and then come back when you're healed.
We've created environments where people feel like I have this leader and I'm supposed to go to them and they're supposed to teach me like how I become good. And then we walk away from all of these days of our lives thinking, wow, like I have a lot of work to do. I'm never gonna be there. It feels like I'm never going to achieve this place where like I'm good enough to like have a voice, or I'm good enough to contribute. I'm never gonna be qualified to be on stage. And we've created that. As like an institution, not us here. Marginalized people come in and they have like really deep, insightful information around like the realities of being a human. And rather than invite that invitation and like say, okay, I want to hear from you, I want to understand, we either other and say like, oh, we got to go help those people that are over there because they have no idea how far away from the stage they are, instead of, yeah, like look what we have done to like over time keep people from ever even wanting to come up here or near this place, because Christians have become some people to be run from instead of run to. Mm-hmm.
And in cultures of exclusivity, we can't have diversity. Whether it is loud or quiet, diversity cannot thrive in a place where we're checking IDs at the door. Okay, here's the checklist. Do you meet all these things? I remember when we were on a Wild Wonder trip with Merle, we went to the gardens, and there was a whole sign that was like, the most sustainable ecosystem is a diverse one, where every plant has a space, and we kind of connect all the pieces together because everything works. We've been watching a lot of Planet Earth lately. Planet Earth is great.
Okay, like if you haven't watched it and you're like, wow, I don't really know if I like buy this whole God thing, oh my gosh. We watch Planet Earth and I'm like, Emily, that one fish's job is just to do this so that everybody else can eat. And she's like, yeah. And I'm like, no, you don't get it. That means like, I'm a little fish and I have one job, and if I do my job, then it keeps the world moving forward. And like, it's all of us are like that.
Yeah, I think that's like the one thing that we realize how interconnected things are and how diversity is so needed, that if one link of an ecosystem goes, the whole thing crumbles, that it's not sustainable. And so being able to recognize that while it might not make sense to you, it has a place. That there is somewhere in that chain that it is necessary for that thing to be there so that this thing can thrive and that thing can thrive, and all of those are so interconnected that if we create a culture of exclusivity, we're like, we don't really like the way that looks. Or like, I don't get how that's useful to me anymore. And we cut it out of that chain, the ecosystem crumbles.
Yeah, it's like if we're like, oh, good job, baby. Yeah, it's like, I mean, even like the ants of the world, right? Like they play a huge role. And I think like, yeah, we don't love bugs in our houses, but we can recognize that like without like bugs even that are doing their job, like our world falls apart. And when we hear people from pulpits or leadership or teachers, any authority people or even our peers saying like, we don't really need that. Like, we don't, like, you think we need that, but like it's actually, they don't really matter. Like we'll get by without them. Mm-hmm. And then we stay quiet and we're like, I don't know if I agree with that, but if you say so, churches become complicit. We become complicit in harm being done. And silence reinforces that harm. And it says that, you know, yeah, it's okay for us to decide who's worthy and who's not. And we don't need to say anything about it. Somebody will figure it out.
Mm-hmm. Well, it makes you question your experience. You're like, I must be the only one feeling it. When everyone's quiet, you believe that you're the only one who is an issue. And that often creates a culture where you think you need to go figure you out, because if everyone else is cool with it and I'm the problem, then like the culture must be fine and I'm the issue. And that's just not true. Because most of the time, if you're thinking it, like 10 other people are too.
So, if we know that healing comes through wounds, then listen closely. By our wounds, we too can become healers of each other. This is not about pretending that pain does not exist. Pain is inevitable, suffering is inevitable. You're going to have bad days, bad moments, and like moments where you make mistakes. But it's not a disqualifier of you. And so, if we are willing to allow our scars and our moments and our lowest days to be something that is used instead of something that is hidden, then we create openings for a deeper, more honest, more compassionate, more committed group of people committed to justice and love in a very authentic and honest way.
Your lived experience makes you inherently more qualified than anything else. It shouldn't be a disqualifier. It's the thing that actually makes you the most credible source in the room.
It's your lived experience that allows you to show up for other people. And so, it sounds nice, right? But like, how do we get there? So really, this is not as much work as it feels. If you've ever been like, oh God, like here goes the therapist talking about how we can all heal. Like, it's not this like long process. This is a mental shift that if you decide that you want to buy into it today and you walk out of this room, this will change your life. If you don't, then it won't. So if we make this shift from seeing our wounds as a source of pain only into a source of power for connection, then we are also fulfilling the prophecy that we talked about in Isaiah.
Mm-hmm. It looks like empathy. Nobody else can get pain like the person who's felt it too. And so it allows you to sit in that discomfort while somebody else is figuring it out. It gives you the knowledge to know what it took for you to work through it. And if you're still working through it, it's an opportunity to learn together. But it makes you incredibly qualified to sit with somebody else and not be like, I know exactly how you're feeling, but I've felt that too. I've felt something similar, and you know what it takes to be able to tolerate it.
So your wounds become bridges instead of walls. It looks like advocacy. If you've been a person that has had to fight for your place in the world, fight to matter, and to be treated with respect, then you know how to teach other people how to fight. And you know how to step up to the fight alongside other people for justice. You can use your story and your presence to make sure that other voices are not silenced, and to challenge all the buts.
And it looks like belonging. If you know what it feels like to be excluded from groups, then we know what it takes to help people feel like they belong, to build community, to create spaces where everyone can exist. It's not, you know that it takes more than like the superficial stuff. It's not just a nice little sign outside that says like, we love everybody. It's creating real cultures where people feel seen, welcome, included, and like their voice matters.
And we can only give people as much as we've given us. And so you can like say it and be like, oh, I totally accept you for the mistakes that you've made. But in order for us to really, really feel that, we have to believe that that means us too. So you have to like, this is for you first. We all probably do a really good job of doing it for other people, but this one's for you. And so if we really think about how do we create a community, and then how do we all show up as our true selves with our scars, with our wounds, using those to equip us to be better advocates and allies for the people in the world, then it starts to look a little bit like what's been discussed for us and like what the point of this is. So what could happen if the kingdom of heaven started to look like a community where those who were told to take a step back are now invited to lead, to speak, and to shape the future?
It's being able to recognize that your painful experiences are ways to connect, ways to be heard, be seen, and to help other people feel heard and seen. It's about building a community not where we weaponize our harm, but we use it as ways to build bridges.
And what would happen if we all decided, everybody in this room left here today and decided that we're not going to be bystanders when we see people being pushed down. We're going to stand up, we're going to speak out, and we're going to link arms with the people who need us.
And it's work. It requires you to be present. It requires you to be able to put yourself out there, be vulnerable, be able to recognize that other people might not be ready to talk about it, or you might have pushback, but it's recognizing that like you're able to sit through the mess and be able to tolerate the discomfort that comes with change.
And that can't just come from up here. That has to come from like every single body that walks in here has to be ready and willing to say, all right, people are messy, I'm messy, and I matter. And I'm here and I have something to say. And this church and this community needs me because nobody has what I've got, and showing up.
And it's about taking it outside of here too. That it's not just something you contemplate on a Sunday, but it's a way you interact with your community inside and outside of here.
So this is an invitation for each of us into a new way of doing things, a new way of thinking about you, and a new way of doing life and learning from our mistakes that can actually create change.
And nobody expects you to be perfect. Like, you're not gonna walk out of here today ready to go at 100%. This is like the slow burn piece of figuring it out and being willing to make mistakes and being willing to say, okay, I'm at like 20% right now, but I don't need to get to 100. Can you get to 30? Can you get to 40?
Do with 20?
Right, being able to take the steps forward instead of expecting yourself to be perfect. This is not an all or nothing thing, it's a process.
And it's where you are right now.
Right.
Like, I don't know if any of you are like me, but I am like I can get anywhere on E with my gas tank. And honestly, sometimes you really can. And so like, you can be on E and still make a difference. Like, you don't need to be a full tank of gas, fully realized, whatever. Like, what do you have right now to give? And what could that do? And so I was like looking at how did Jesus do this? Like, what are the ways that this actually like lived out? And we kind of got it broken down into 4 main ways that we can all act this out.
So the first thing that Jesus did is he went and sought out people. He moved. It was all about proximity. He accessed the people who needed him. He didn't sit in one spot and wait for people to come to him. He went out and found the people who needed the support, who needed love, who needed help, all those kinds of things. He said, I'm going to go where you are.
And so maybe this week, think to yourself, is there a way that you can leave your comfort zone and go out and seek out somebody in your life that has been told to take a step back and that they don't matter? Jesus also listened, constantly asked questions. We learned from Rabbi Weisberg that in the Jewish tradition, there's a lot of asking questions. And like, we see that modeled throughout the Bible. And so he was asking, like, what do you want? And so we can do that too. We can listen to pain. We can sit alongside people while they're in silence, and we can hear out the stories that other people don't want to hear. As a therapist, I cannot tell you how many times I have heard, I've never told anybody this, but. And it's like crazy because it'll be like, oh, I just talked to 3 other people today that are going through this thing that you think is like this horrible disqualifier. And a million of us are going through it.
Or we get the response of, I've never had anyone just sit and tell me that like it was okay to feel the way I was feeling about that. They always get the response of like, oh, here's how you fix it, or here's how you get over it. And most people have never had the opportunity where somebody just sat and said, yeah, that sucks. Like that was unfair. Or you were harmed and it's okay to still feel upset about it. It's being able to listen, not fix, not jump into problem solving mode, not make it about you, but sit and just really listen to the words that are coming out of people's mouths.
So think to yourself, is there somebody that you normally tune out, that you ignore, that you roll your eyes at, that you like scroll while they're talking, that maybe you could like give them your attention this week, that you could pay attention to and really listen while they're talking? Jesus was a disruptor. This is my favorite. He didn't just go around being nice, right? Like, I think that's something that a lot of us have got down, yay. Okay, so we're gonna move beyond just being nice. He disrupted injustice. He flipped tables in the temple. He exposed hypocrisy in religious and political structures. And he redefined who got to belong. Not with permission. People weren't like, yes, we really want to hear what you have to say, but he said, I have something to say and it's important, so I'm gonna say it.
So asking yourself, like, what would change if I were brave enough to ask a question in this meeting? If I started to call out exclusionary behavior, what ripple effect would that have if I was able to call out unjust systems? Just because you call it out does not mean you have to be the person to fix it. But this is breaking the silence piece. This is not being complicit. It's saying, like, I'm not okay with this. And if I'm not okay with it, there's probably someone else who's not okay with it. And then you find your community and you start to make solutions and change the culture. But just because you call it out doesn't mean you have to be the one to fix it. You can be a part of the process, but we need people who are willing to call it out.
And that's really scary right now for a lot of us, especially depending on what you do for work or whatever. And so maybe you're not always in a position to publicly speak out against something horrible, but you're probably in a position to go to that person and see if they're okay, to say, I saw what happened to you and I know that wasn't okay and I don't agree with it. How can I help you? So if you're not ready to like go and be, that's fine. People don't always need a champion. Sometimes they just need a friend.
And for the people who hold privilege, this is a space where you get to go out.
Yeah. So like the people that don't have to take as many steps back, you have more room to play with stuff. Like you are already closer. And so that is how privilege works. If you're like, okay, like I guess I don't have a whole lot to lose. Okay, you don't have a lot to lose. Do something with that. And if you don't, then help figure out what you do have to contribute. And the last thing that Jesus did was stay. When things got
When things got hard, he stayed. He rose again and he came back. Like he came back to the same society that crucified him and said, I'm willing to sit in this so that my people know that I'm able to get my message out, that I'm able to do the thing that I came here for. And he risked it, and he sat with it, and he answered the questions, and he was able to tolerate the discomfort because of the community.
So what would happen if you would go to that person that you can't stand, that you are, they're always got something going on, or there's always something to say. What would be different if instead of being like, gotta go, you were like, hey, I see you. You're going through something, and I want to sit in this with you today, in this moment, to show you that I care. Even when faced with questions and scrutiny and accusations, I don't recall, I could be wrong. Is there any time in the Bible that Jesus does just like a Peppa Pig exit? It's like, gotta go. Dan's like, So I think I'm safe to say that like, Jesus never walked away in the middle of somebody suffering. Mm-hmm. And so keep that in mind, that maybe when you normally would walk away, one little tiny baby shift that you could make is decide to stay a little bit longer. We each have a unique, irreplaceable role to play in the work of collective healing. You're not just a spectator, you're not just an audience member, you're not on the bench, you're not in like pre-training or whatever, like you are on the team already without having to do anything. Mm-hmm. And so you can decide today what part you play and then just do that. You're already qualified. Mm-hmm.
And it requires us to all be in different places. If we were all 100% ready to go, then we might miss some of the things that we need from the people who are thinking about it. So like, you don't have to be ready to go. You can run on E, you can be like, we need people at every stage. So like, you're already qualified. You don't need to do anything. You don't need to change anything. You, at this moment, are ready to go and impact your community.
So we're gonna leave you with this one. Emily grew up in a Catholic church, and I really like how they do a nice little kind of like blessing at the end. And so this is the one we wanna leave you guys with today. May we leave this place recognizing the sacredness of our own stories, wounds and all.
May we have the courage to see God reflected in every other person, especially those pushed to the margins.
Let's be the kind of people whose lives make the world a little more like heaven, one brave, healing act at a time.
By our wounds, may we truly heal one another.
Amen.
Before we go, we'll say this together, yeah? Is that all right? I have a gift for you guys, and don't get excited. Or get excited. You might really, really love it. I don't know. Okay. But on behalf of all of the privilege that I so gracefully carry with great humility, I had Dave Dameron, technically I didn't have Dave Dameron do this, but he did it as a joke. I had Dave Dameron 3D print a bust of myself. And I want you to take this home and put it on your mantle. Now, I also have a glow-in-the-dark version of this that will be for sale in the lobby, okay? What would be creepier than waking up to that, right? Also, it's a little skinnier than I am now, which I'm a little offended about. So there you go. You take that home. You're the first one to receive this. Care for it greatly, and do not pass it on, or I will be very offended, okay? Did you guys really, really love them today? Let's say why don't you lead us? We might have to move out of the way so everyone can hear. Well, you want to lead everybody in saying this before we leave, and then you just tell them bye. And then you say, see you next week, and bring back your friends. Don't forget that.
Okay, we're gonna read it together. 3, 2, 1. May we leave this place recognizing the sacredness of our own stories, wounds and all. May we have the courage to see God reflected in every other person, especially those pushed to the margins. And let's be the kind of people whose lives make the world a little more like heaven, one brave, healing act at a time. By our wounds, may we truly heal one another. Okay, before you leave, we are Emily and I just started a consulting business, yay. And so we are really, really hoping to be able to go and do work like this with the community on a higher level. But because most of our people that we work with, it's confidential, we can't use anything that people have told us. And so if there was something that we said that either helped you or you thought that we could do better or whatever, if you wouldn't mind giving us time or just giving us your feedback, it's like two questions, I think.
3 questions, yeah.
That would mean the world to us. And have a good week. We'll see you next time.